Well, now joining us on A's Cast Live, he's a former Athletic, and everybody knows his broadcasting career is absolutely taken off. A World Series champion. The great Ron Darling is with us here on the set here at the ballpark in West Sacramento. It is great to have you. We had you last year. We had you on video, but it's awesome to have you in person.
Thank you so much for having me, and I feel so great being next to Steve. You know, Steve and you didn't, but I started my career. First time I was ever on TV was next to this guy.
That's right.
And he taught me a great lesson. When we did this show, it was a little show in Los Angeles, and he had so much fun doing it. I try to have the same fun when I'm doing my gigs now.
You know, when I think about bringing you out here and just how long you guys have known each other, I want the viewers to understand when you first walked up, we're talking about you leave Yale, you're playing in the Mets system, and you're playing against Steve Sachs and his brother in Double-A. All these years later, here we are doing TV.
Well, Steve was saying that I pitched one of the first games I ever pitched was against the San Antonio team. Yeah. I remember being so jealous because he was on the same team as his brother. How good is that? But literally, this is the funniest thing ever. 1981 was when the players were on strike.
Right.
So I was drafted. First game, one of the first games I ever pitched in was the All-Star game, the Double-A All-Star game, because they were just trying to bring some faces to minor league baseball. Yeah. And I don't know how I got through that inning because I was nervous and all that stuff. But he was the stud in that league that year.
Hey, Ron, thank you. And Ron, so good to be with you. And we go back a long ways. And one of my first gigs I ever did was with Ron on the National Sports Report after retirement. But Ron, I wanted to ask you, some of the things that have happened in just your tenure in baseball through playing and being a broadcaster as well. There's so many changes that have happened, especially in the last couple of years. Where do you see the evolution right now of baseball going? I mean, it's happening pretty quickly, from rules changes to size of players to velocity and then all these numbers that they're throwing at us.
The game has never seen better athletes or bigger athletes than it does right now. Instinctually, though, I don't think the game is as it used to be. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of guys that, they've spent a lot of time in the cage. I don't know if they've spent as much time taking ground balls and all that stuff. But I think in our day, only baseball people ran baseball. It was ex-players. It was ex-general managers. Yes. That's the only people. And they wouldn't allow anyone else to be a part of it. Now the analytics people kind of run baseball, and they don't really have an affiliation for the baseball people either. Yes. So I think that the only way baseball will always be at its best is that we have a great mixture of the people that play the game with the people that are really smart and produce all this brilliant information. The only thing that, that doesn't alarm me, but it's just, unless the game has really changed, the guys I played with, all that information is hard to really take in and use.
Yes.
Like really making baseball simpler is the best way for the athlete, I think, to thrive.
I agree.
That is, and it's Masters weekend, right? And we're thinking about golf, and they talk so much about how when guys are just living on the range with TrackMan and they start losing the feel of how to play the game, you get that sense in our game now. As you mentioned, how can one human being take all of that information and apply it when it's already so hard to play, especially hitting when you're facing the velocity now?
I think there are some guys that are probably so prescient that they can apply all that stuff, but very few of those guys. And when it comes to baseball and stuff, I think it's really hard to work on your mechanics of your swing or the mechanics of you throwing. Mm-hmm. But then once you get on the field and the bell rings, it's dog eat dog, right? It's just competition.
Right.
It's like, I'm better than you. I'm going to beat you. And I think you can't lose that. And analytics, you don't know how it goes. Like in 92, I remember we were in spring training, and the late, great Dave Henderson, former Athletic center fielder, and they finally were getting computers that were tracing the velocity, your ball, spin, and all of that. And they had my spring training start, and I asked Hendu, I said, what do you think of all this information? What do you think that just said about my outing today? He said, I think you're going to get released. Which Hendu, he had that great personality. Yes. And I was like, yes, I mean, all these numbers don't really show you that really it's a game of guts.
Yes, I agree. And when it comes down to it, it's just they're playing baseball, And Ron, I wanted to ask you about striking a balance with the players today. They get to the ballpark at noon. They've got video cues. They've got different time slots and where they're going to the cage. Sometimes they nix that and they're on the field, then they're not on the field. There's so many different aspects of the game now besides, I can tell you, when we were in Montreal and we played, I remember the itinerary. bus was at 5 o'clock.
That's right.
You got there, you hit at 6, and the game was at 7:10, and that was it. They're at the ballpark at noon now. Isn't it important to strike a life balance between the two?
100%. And if I were managing a team, I would honestly have moments during the year where you stayed home with your family. Do not come to the ballpark.
Yes.
The locker room's going to be locked. Keith Hernandez, who I work with, one of our great players of our generation.
Absolutely.
He was on the bus at 5 o'clock every day. He got to the ballpark. He'd sit and have a cup of coffee. He'd take a few swings, he'd take a few ground balls, and he was ready to go. He told me he would be fearful in today's game as a young player that if he just tried to be the free spirit that he was and do his own thing, that he might be ostracized.
Wow.
That he's not doing the game plan of everyone else.
Well, last night we were looking down and we saw some Ron Darling jerseys. And I was thinking about this going, you think about your career, obviously a great pitcher, a World Series champion. Then you go into broadcasting. You guys are always rated as the top broadcast in baseball. I love you on MLB Network.
Absolutely.
Somebody's got to keep our buddy Brian Kinney in check on MLB Now. Talking about analytics, but just talk about your career. Because a lot of A's fans remember you as a pitcher, but just talk about how your overall career from a player to a broadcaster. It's really been one of the better careers we have seen.
Yes, That's pretty funny you say that about Brian Kinney. I think my role on MLB Now is as soon as they've delivered everything, my role is to say, well, as a former player, they don't really look at it that way. So I think that I preface every statement like that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just so fortunate. At some point, I'm getting paid to watch baseball games. Is there a better job in the world? I'm sitting next to two buddies that I do the games with. How did it happen? It definitely does take hard work. I think you have to be on camera a lot. Steve knows this. Mm-hmm. The more you're on camera, you know it. The more you can be yourself. The more you can be yourself, then really good stuff starts coming out. The third part of it, do people like you? I'm not in charge of that.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
the hard part. That's really the hard part
right.
is whether people like you or not. And I think that the last part of the business of it is that we got a lot of people behind the cameras here. They're just as important as we are. Like the people behind the camera could maybe do our job. I know we can't do their job.
Yeah.
So they're right. So they're
right.
really important. So
That's
I think
right.
If you treat it like a family and a collaboration between all of us, then at the end everyone's satisfied.
Yeah. Right. I want to ask you a quick one specifically about this team. It kind of been on a roller coaster. Last year maybe not expectations. All the money that was spent, it's well known.
Yeah.
But this team seems to be now, when you look at the numbers and you watch this team interact with one another, you see that they're at the top in the bullpen and in ERA, as well as the starters collectively at a 2.10. Hitting is off the chart. This team really seems to be settling and going full circle now. This is a fearful club for some ball clubs.
That's spot on. I think everything starts at the top, right? So you got to start with Mark Kotze.
Yeah.
Kotze. He is a pro through and through, a great guy through and through. And he's been put in this spot for a reason, to make sure that these young players thrive and get better. Mm-hmm. The talent on this team, just watching him last night, Soderstrom takes an offer. It didn't look like an offer to me. No. There was balls rocketing off his bat all night long. So between Wilson and Soderstrom, Langoliers, I'm a huge fan of. I didn't know he ran like he runs. He really can run for a catcher. So you have all of this young talent, young core of everyday players, because pitching, you can go out and get a Severino. Yeah. You can go get some pitching. But core young players that you have control of are the promised land for any organization. This team's going to get much better really quickly. It might not always produce wins right away because they're going to have to learn how to kind of win every day, find a way to win. But they have all the pieces that this could be the time in the middle 2000s or late 80s, early 90s where they can return to form.
Yeah, probably.
Let's end on this. Obviously, this means a lot to my partner because he grew up here in West Sacramento. It's your first trip here, getting to see the ballpark, getting to see the change. What are your first thoughts on the Athletics playing here? Well,
when I was playing for the Oakland A's, after I retired, I used to bring my two older boys, and we would come to minor league games here. Oh. And I just loved it. At those point, I just retired, and I don't know if you felt this way. When you retire, you don't really retire. They kind of retire you.
Yeah.
And you're kind of betrayed by the calendar. So the first 3 to 5 years after you're retired, you don't really want to see the big league games because you don't want to see someone you played with and they're like, hey, what are you doing? You're not playing anymore. So you go to the minor league games and you get a feel for what it was like when baseball was innocent and you're in a bus and you're going 20 hours and you have to have the guts and the fortitude to get a hit or 3 hits that night or whatever, or strike some people out. I think this is really great for the people of West Sacramento. I think it's great for the area that, there's a lot of fans here that used to travel the hour and a half, 2 hours down and back. They'll go see an A's game. It's not only that they get to see this young, beautiful core that Oakland is the formatting here in Oakland, but more importantly, whether you like it or not, Alonso and Lindor and Soto come in. That's good. People love to see that.
Yes.
I went to the Kings game the other night against Denver. I'd never seen Jokic play before.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like Shaq who can dribble. He just bullies people out of the way. That's great. Whenever you can bring that kind of entertainment to a smaller city, it's good for everyone.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, as a player, as a broadcaster, thrown as an author, you've had a great baseball life, and we always appreciate your time. Thank you for stopping by, and have a great call this weekend.
Hey, guys, anytime you call on me, I'm here for you too. Thank you,
Ronnie.
Appreciate it,
Thank
man.
you, buddy.
You're the best.
Appreciate it.